Yeah, I'm back for another episode of Foxcast. Obviously, we finally into the season now. Played our first game. I am planning on doing these a bit more regularly than I have been, but minimum once a week is a good start. So today I'm just going to look at obviously the first game of the season against Wolves. A great start. Well, a great start in terms of points, not so much in terms of performance, but a solid start nonetheless. Then I'm going to talk a bit about the big news today, which is obviously Harvey Barnes's new 4-year contract, plus some other kind of transfer goings on. Obviously, there's only a couple of weeks left now before the transfer window closes. And then I'm just going to have a little bit of time in the end just to look forward to this weekend, which is going to be a starting with the result of the weekend. Obviously, it was the main thing is to get off to a start, to get off with a win, get 3 points on the board, and I have to say that actually Wolves are a tough team. We've seen that in previous seasons against them. I think it's actually the third time that we played them first game of the season. I went to the previous two, and we beat them once 2-0 and drew 0-0. Obviously, a slightly different Wolves side than we're accustomed to, a new manager, Bruno Lage, who's a bit of an unknown quantity. And I have to say that they played well. They were solid defensively and actually had some really good chances that, fortunately for us, all fell to Adama Traore, who you know caused havoc, because he often does, but his finishing left a lot to be desired. Um, but yeah, in terms of our performance, so obviously the lineup was kind of pretty much what we expected. It was kind of following on from the Villarreal friendly and the Charity Shield game. We kind of stuck with that same formation, same lineup, which is what I kind of thought would happen. The only kind of difference was obviously Thomas coming on left back with Bertrand being injured. It cost me in my fantasy team, but that's another story, and I can save that for the fantasy pod rather than the Fox pod. But yeah, Luke Thomas is a very, he's still only 1920. He's a perfectly good left back. I just think that Bertrand is going to be the number one choice, at least until James Justin is out. Obviously, starting with Daniel Amati as well at the back with Soyuncu. Amati's been with us for a long time, and when we really do need, when we're desperate, essentially, we can call on him and bring him into the team. And we know what he can provide. He's solid defensively, not so good on the ball and passing, and we saw that a couple of times where he kind of gave away possession. And one in particular, I think, what was it, at the start of the second half, that led to a really good chance for Traore. So yeah, I think it's a short term solution while we wait for Johnny Evans to get back, and obviously Vestergaard had only trained with the team for one day, so he wasn't really ready to come straight into the starting lineup. Yeah, apart from that, it was kind of the standard team. It's good to see Harvey Barnes back on the left wing, and obviously, yeah, he signed his new contract today, which I'll go on to later. And Vardy up front on his own with Daka and Iheanacho on the bench. I do wonder how long Rodgers. I suspect that we're going to switch between 3-5-2 and 4-2-3-1 an awful lot this season, both during the games and before the games. I wonder how long it's going to be before we do see kind of a 3-5-2 formation with, either Daka or Iheanacho coming into the side. It might even be this weekend against West Ham, considering how strong they are going forwards and how much kind of attacking threat they have on the pitch. But yeah, so we start with a 4-2-3-1. I think in the first half it was a promising performance. The real positives were Ricardo right back, kind of looking more like his old self. Obviously, he was out for a long time with that knee injury, and when he came back last season, he set himself very high standards. At the end of the day, we know what he can do when he performs at his best, and it really seemed like he is kind of finding that level again. And it was proven by the great goal he scored. That kind of came completely from him, from a situation where he's on the byline, two men with him, and just one little bit of trickery and a bit of pace to get away from them, and a great ball into the box. Obviously, Vardy still had a lot to do with that finish, but I think where we still kind of maybe lack a natural right winger, and obviously we're playing Perez there at the moment, and Perez, although our frustrations are there with his kind of what he offers in terms of his goal and assist return, what he does do is he does work a lot, and he kind of, especially defensively, in terms of trying to win the ball back higher up the pitch. And I think that Rodgers isn't maybe as concerned with him not providing kind of goal returns, because he can allow Ricardo to really bomb forward, and Ricardo adds an attacking threat that we wouldn't have otherwise. And like it was also really good to see Vardy kind of get off the mark. Like, we kind of know that towards the end of last season, and even during preseason a little bit, his finishing hasn't quite been there. What I have always been encouraged by is that the hunger is clearly still there, and he's still getting into dangerous positions. And obviously last season, kind of fortunately, we could rely on Kelechi to kind of bring in the goals. But having said all that, especially with playing him on front on his own, we do need Vards to be kind of, at his best and putting away chances. And so I think just getting off the mark on the first game kind of puts some of that to bed from last season, and hopefully he can really kick on now, and we can see hopefully he can get to another 20 goal plus season in the Premier League. He's, what is he now? He's 34, 35, 2 years left on his contract. I wouldn't be surprised if he extends that by another year as well. And, he's, now that Daka's there, it's an extra pressure on him to perform. It was a shame not to see Daka come onto the pitch. Rodgers decided to change the formation in the second half because Wolves were looking more and more dangerous, and he brought on Vestergaard and went to three at the back. So that kind of used up one of the subs for a defensive formation. Just to touch on that, Vestergaard, it's a really good signing considering how desperate we were after Fofana's injury. And every time I think of Fofana's injury, it still annoys me, and I still feel for the guy because he is such a talented player and could have really kicked on this season. But at the end of the day, we have to just accept it. He's clearly accepted it. He's already kind of smiling and getting on with his recovery. So yeah, at least we brought in Vestergaard. The thing is that he's a very different player to Fofana, right? Fofana offers kind of the ability to kind of bring the ball forward and go past people, pace to kind of cover at the back. And with us often, playing quite high up the pitch, it's really important because the centre backs, whether they be Soyuncu, Fofana, Evans, often the threat is in behind, and we saw that perfectly with that Adama Traore chance where again Amati gave it away, and they played one through ball through the middle, and he was clean through, and he really should have scored. So that is my one slight concern with Vestergaard. But what he does offer is he's got really good passing distribution and passing range. So when he has some time and he can assess the pitch, he can really ping some balls kind of diagonally and forwards. And I think that kind of like Barnes and Vardy could really benefit from that. And the other thing that he offers as well is obviously he's a giant, right? So both defensively and attacking on set pieces, he offers something that we didn't kind of previously have, and it's been a real weakness for us. I think he scored 3 headed goals from set pieces for Southampton last season. So that's another dimension to our team, which I think could prove really useful. He did look a little bit shaky. I don't blame him, having to come on your debut after one day's training with a full crowd, with Adama Traore running at you. It's not easy, but they kept the clean sheet. And the other thing that I really like about him is he's a real presence, not just physically, but also in terms of his character. You can see that he commands a lot of respect on the pitch, and he's very vocal. So I think that that's another thing that will really help us. I think Soyuncu, whilst he can, he's really aggressive and also really composed in tight situations at the back, he's not a particularly vocal defender, and we do need someone to help organise at the back. Obviously, the other thing is that he already has that relationship with Kasper from Denmark. He has a relationship with Bertrand from Southampton, so it shouldn't take him too long for him to kind of settle into the team. And I wouldn't be surprised if, this weekend we either go with 3 at the back, so Marty Stay kind of keeps his place and we bring in Vestergaard, or Vestergaard just comes in straight for Marty. I'll be interested to see what Rodgers does there. But either way, I think we'll definitely see him starting this weekend. The other subs, so obviously Samare came in to centre mid for Yuri, I think it was. Obviously Yuri runs his socks out on the pitch, and I think if he can do that for 70 minutes and then we have the option to bring Samare on, that's really positive. And what Samare offers, clearly, from what I've seen in pre-season and these first few games, is the ability to hold on to the ball in tight situations. Like he's very, very difficult to get off the ball. Both his, it's kind of a combination of his close control and his strength. And when you're under the cosh, like we were the weekend, 1-0 up, but under a lot of pressure, having someone who can do that is, a blessing. And I've seen today he was described as kind of like a hybrid between Yuri and Didi, and I can see that. He's not an out-and-out defensive midfielder. He's not, a deep lying playmaker like a Yuri, but he's somewhere in between. And I think we are going to see him off the bench a lot this season, much more than kind of in a starting role. But having that option to bring on is really good. And the fact that we didn't even bring Daka on just shows how our strength and depth has just gone up a level this season. And when it comes to the Europa League especially, that's going to make a massive difference. And not just that, obviously the last couple of years, there's been injuries that have really hampered us towards the end. So I think that now we're much better equipped to deal with those injuries, should they come about. And then, the other sub was Kelechi, who obviously, is at this point is a reliable guy to bring on. He can hold the ball up a bit and give Vardy some support. No Daka. Hopefully we might see him this weekend. Obviously, I think the plan is obviously that he's going to take over from Vards over time. But I don't want him to have to be too patient at the same time. He's clearly ready now. He's not super young. He's got an amazing goal scoring record already. So whether we'll see a bit of rotation there and Vardy might spend the odd game on the bench, I'm not sure. Obviously, we do, like I said, we have the Europa League and stuff where I'm sure Daka will be our kind of main man for that competition. And that's probably been, during the kind of transfer phase, I'm sure that was relayed to him that you're not going to be starting in the league straight away, but you're going to get plenty of opportunities in the cup, and if anything happens to Vardy in terms of injuries or anything, then you're there and you're ready to go. I don't think we can underestimate as well how much he can learn from Vardy. Like, I know he's already kind of touched on that, but in terms of the intensity of the Premier League, and Vardy's been doing it now for so many years, and they're quite similar players in terms of their attributes, like pace, finishing, a bit of aggression. Hopefully kind of Vardy can act as a bit of a mentor and really help bring Daka into the team. I'm just happy that we got off with a win, to be honest. Like, you look at the other results in the Premier League and all of our rivals, I guess we can class them as rivals now. I would consider us a kind of top 6, top 7 team. They all won, with the exception of Arsenal, bless them, but and Man City obviously losing to Tottenham. But with Man City, it's not particularly a concern. That they're going to start getting wins on the board soon enough. But with all the other teams winning, I think it was really important for us to get off to this good start. And, especially being at home with the fans back, and the kind of general feel-good factor around the club with the new training ground, the stadium that's just been announced, the signings that everybody's happy with. I think it's just important to carry that momentum into the season. And, that can make a big difference. It's not just the strength and depth that we now have, and coming off the back of 2 fifth-place finishes, and the FA Cup win, and all of this. It's just the general atmosphere amongst the squad and in the stands. When that all comes together, that can make a big difference. So yeah, really positive. I think that we will improve in terms of our performance, and we might need to do that this weekend because, like I said, West Ham away is a very tough game. I did watch them against Newcastle, and although they were losing at half time, they really showed in the second half kind of what they're capable of. And last season we lost to them twice. I think it was 3-0 at home and 3-2 away, but we were 3-0 down in that game too. So yeah, I mean that just shows that it's going to be a very, very tough game. Just moving on to kind of some transfer stuff that's been happening, and obviously contract stuff. So announced today that Harvey Barnes signed his new 4-year deal. Obviously, there's been some links. There's been kind of rumors that Liverpool are admirers of him, and I'm not surprised. Last season in particular, he really kicked on and he showed what what he can do essentially, and his goal and assist return prior to his injury was really good. So I'm happy that we've tied him down. I think that's a really good move by the club. I think it just there's so many great things that you can say about Leicester at the moment, right? And one of them is the ways that they kind of handle the contracts at the club. Like for a start, obviously Kante went to Chelsea because he had a minimum fee release clause in his contract, and in the end, Chelsea got themselves a bargain at 30, just over 30 mil. If he didn't have one, we would have been easily looking at 50 plus. And ever since then, the club have obviously, made a decision that they not going to include any minimum fee release clauses in our players' contracts. So that allows us to really drive the prices up for our players, like the 80 mil that we got for Harry Maguire. And on top of that, it gives us a real position of strength in the transfer market because we don't let any players go below 2 years of their contract unless it's like a Wes Morgan or a Fuchs, someone who's actually getting towards the end of their career. We don't let players' contracts run down, and we don't end up in this situation where there's 1 or 2 years left and you kind of really have to make a decision in terms of cashing in before they're available on a free. So Harvey Barnes is a really good one. I know that Soyuncu has 2 years left, so I'm sure that they'll be looking at that. And then the other big one is obviously Yuri Tillemans, who I know that there's an offer on the table to basically become one of our highest paid players, unsurprisingly, because he's clearly one of our best and most influential players now. But there has been a lot of kind of and ahhing on his side over that. And, although it's been on the table for a while, he still hasn't signed. So I think that's a really key one for us to nail down. I can understand that he doesn't want to he wants to assess his options. Obviously, he was quite heavily linked again to Liverpool earlier in the season because of Wijnaldum leaving. I don't know how much of that was just rumours. I don't, it didn't seem particularly concrete. But at the same time, we know that he has the ability to play at the highest level, and he's obviously kind of got that in mind. But hopefully, they can come to an agreement whereby he can sign a new contract, and we can sort of verbally agree on what it's going to take for him to move. I think that's the other thing. It's like we don't stand in players' way when the offer comes in from a big club, and as long as the price is right, then we will let those players go, even if they are still on a long contract. It's like you look at the Harry Kane situation at Tottenham, right? He signed a 6-year contract. I think it was in 2018, and now he's obviously desperate to leave, and he feels that they got a verbal agreement that for a certain price or whatever, Daniel Levy said he would let him go. But if you sign that 6-year contract, for a start, you're giving all of the impetus to the club to decide what they want to do. And when you've got an owner like Daniel Levy, who can't necessarily be trusted on his word, then you're kind of vulnerable to not being allowed to leave just because you want to. I think our owners are a bit different. Obviously, they did kind of make Riyadh stay a bit longer than he probably would have liked, and he did kind of kick up a fuss. But they held out and got the 60 mil that they felt that he was worth, and I think that's it. It's just a case of we won't stand in your way. Our owners know what the players, if the players have done their bit for the club and offers coming from a big team, they're not all these are just to stand in their way and let a player get unhappy, but they will try and get the right price. So hopefully Tielemans we can nail down. I'm happy that Barnes is. So Yunchu, like I said, is the other one who's got 2 years left. But apart from that, there's no one who's kind of vulnerable and no release clauses that I know of, like I said. So it's just another really kind of shrewd way of running your business that Leicester have. And like, even though in previous years we've always sold one big asset every summer since kind of the transfer title win, this year it doesn't look like that's going to happen, which I'm which I'm really happy about. A little bit surprised about, but I'm happy. And I think next year we probably will, where it might be Yuri or one of the other big names, but whoever's going to go, we're gonna be seeing a big profit. And that's this model that we've got of buying kind of young players at reasonable prices that we feel that we can flip for more, just continues to bear fruit. And even though Tielemans was our record signing and he didn't come cheap, or 40 around the 40 million mark, like it was still a good price. And then now I think he would be 60 plus. Ben here says Maddison. Yeah, well, obviously there was a lot of rumours with Arsenal and Maddison. I did say from the very start that was never going to happen, and now you boys have signed on Odegaard finally. So yeah, that looks completely dead in the water. And again, if Maddison, I don't think any Leicester fan would have been devastated if he had gone for the right price, which for me would have been around 60, 70 million. And Arsenal were never going to pay that. And at the end of the day, this is the thing: if people do pay, then kind of so be it. We're happy days for us. More spending to come, you reckon? Well, I just saw today that the stat that Arsenal were the highest spenders this summer. Right now, once Ramsdale and Odegaard get over the line, which is unbelievable, really. And I don't want to rip on Arsenal. I take a lot of interest in Arsenal because of I like their content on AFTV, but also it's the polar opposite of Leicester, right? Like right now, in terms of we buy low, we sell high. You do the opposite. We make sure that players are on long contracts, whereas you let them run down. I know that your front two. Aubameyang has got 2 years left, and Lacazette's got 1. And you've had various situations where players' contracts have been run down right to the end. It's just like, and obviously like I said, we've got an amazing owner. Your owner is heavily disliked. There's just a lot of differences. And then the other thing that really sets us apart, and again, it's tough for Arsenal, but you want to attract big names, and big names come with big wages, but then it's like a snowball effect. So once you pay Ozil 350 grand a week, Aubameyang 250 grand a week, I think one of the most absurd, I think, is Kolasinac, 125 grand a week, and sure enough, you can't get rid of him. And this is the problem, like, it inflates the whole squad. And then when players become surplus to requirements, not only are you looking at a loss in terms of what you paid on transfer fees, but it's very difficult to shift anyone who hasn't particularly performed that well and is on wages that high. And the players have every right to be like, well, no, I'm going to stay here and, carry on with this bumper contract that I've got. Obviously the kind of big, like the famous situation of that was Rodwell at Sunderland, in League One, and in, what was it, like 60 grand a week or something that they clearly couldn't afford. But, this is the thing. It's like, you have to be planning long term and trying to look after your club and not end up in these situations where you've got all these players that you can't shift, and then you can't bring people in, you can't refresh a squad, and it just causes headaches. So obviously, I do take a lot of interest in Arsenal's situation, Ben, and it is unfortunate that for you, when like I say, when you actually compare to Leicester, we're basically polar opposites in every way. I think you've summed it up perfectly there. Chalk and cheese between how both clubs are run. Definitely, and I just think that we've got people in in positions, not just Brendan, but also kind of above that. Everybody's knows what they're doing, and it comes from the top down, right? And I think Arsenal from the top down, it's just there's inexperience and there's mistakes from previous regimes and all these things that have led to kind of the situation that you guys are in now. Just moving on to some transfer stuff. So in terms of outgoings, I think like I touched on in preseason that in my opinion we've got too many centre midfielders. One of them being just too many centre midfielders. So two that are particularly surplus to requirements, I'd say, are probably Mendy, although he's kind of injured at the moment. So whether that would scupper any transfer in terms of passing a fitness test or something like that, I don't know. But then the other one is Hamza Chowdhury, and I think Hamza is going to be the one to move on. Whether it'll be on loan or permanent is yet to be seen. It looks like the Newcastle kind of rumours have been around for a while. Bit strange because obviously Steve Bruce slated Hamza Chowdhury for a challenge that he made on, I think it was on Richie in the League Cup last season, where he injured him. And we know what Hamza's like, right? He does fly in for challenges. He is a bit over aggressive or just over eager sometimes to get the ball and make some pretty bad challenges. But obviously Brucey was just annoyed that one day, but obviously quite like what he saw in Newcastle could probably do with a bit of aggression in centre mid. So it looks like that's going to happen. I would quite like to see him go out on loan. I think that it's like he's not really ever had a chance to prove himself with a successive run of games. So maybe at Newcastle we can see, it can give us an idea of whether or not he can make it at Leicester and then make a decision next summer. But like I said, at the moment we've just got too much competition in that area, so I would not be surprised to see him move on. I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't actually sold anyone yet. Like, we haven't had any money come in. Obviously now with the Vestergaard signing, we spent about 55-60 mil. And like I said, normally we sell a big asset to cover all of these, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I wonder who else might go out the door between now and kind of the summer. But maybe with what happened in the Europa League last season and the fact that we went out to Slavia Prague after fielding a kind of second string team, maybe he really wants that big squad this season, and he's going to kind of hold on to as many players as possible. And then in terms of transfers in, I think we can all be really happy with our kind of business so far. And I think the one position that's remaining that would really kind of put the icing on the cake, as it were, would be a right winger, a left-footed right winger preferably. So someone who can cut inside and still leave that space for Ricardo to bomb down the right. I think Rodgers has already hinted that that's the one position that they're still looking at. Whether, how much money is left in the budget, I'm not sure. But the player who is really kind of where the rumours are really hotting up is Noni Madueke at PSV. So I didn't actually know much about him. He's only 19. He is English. So he was a Tottenham. He was a Tottenham youth player, and then he decided to move over to PSV. Decided to move to PSV and broke into their first team, and he's really made an impact there. So I think he scored about 8 goals last season. He scored 2 goals against Ajax in the Super Cup not long ago, the Dutch Super Cup. And for yesterday, I did the standard, go onto YouTube, watch his highlights, but he looks like a quality player. At 19 years of age, the potential is huge. Loves running at people direct, got some tricks in the locker, got a good left foot, scored some good goals from outside the area, and looks like the exact sort of profile of the player that we're looking for. So I'm not surprised to see us rumours. I saw that Leicester scouts were at the PSV game yesterday. So part of this transfer interest, and one of the reasons why maybe it's getting close to the deadline, the window deadline, is because PSV are playing Benfica in a Champions League playoff. And there's talk that the transfer might depend on that. Not only, I guess, because he'll probably want to play in the Champions League if they get there, but also that kind of cash windfall. So if PSV don't manage to qualify, there'll be a kind of gap in their finances because obviously they'll miss out on that Champions League money. So last night they lost 2-1 to Benfica in the first leg away. Away goals, I forgot for a second, but away goals don't count this season. So that one away goal doesn't make a difference. And yeah, they'll play them in the home fixture next week. So I think every Leicester fan's going to be keeping an eye on that game and hoping that, that PSV lose, essentially, don't go through, and then that might open the door for this transfer. And yeah, it looks like a classic Leicester signing. Like I said, 19, English, around 20 mil is the kind of rumoured price. So the opportunity is there to bring him into the team slowly, flip him for more money, providing he does well. And yeah, it would fill that gap. And really, I think that would be, if we did get him, or just someone else who can offer the same sort of attributes, it would just kind of finish off this transfer window, and we would have made 5 excellent signings, and really kind of brought the squad on from last season and the last couple of years. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, a couple of weeks left. We don't have much business left to do. Just maybe get 2 or 3 players out, bring a winger in if possible, and happy days. We're good to go. This weekend, obviously West Ham away from home. So like I said, they were very impressive on that first game. They've got a lot of quality players now. Where they lack, and it's not going to be a problem for them this weekend, but it is the kind of their strength in depth. Obviously, if anything happens to Antonio, they still don't really have another striker option. And the same with a couple of their other players, like obviously like Declan Rice is huge for them. Like Cresswell, they have a lot of players that, when they're fit and their first team is firing, it's a really, really strong team. But if they did have a couple of injuries, that could cause some problems. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. I would take a draw, to be honest. But I am looking forward to just seeing, 2 high quality, like top 6 Premier League sides from last season go at it and see where we've kind of come from those defeats against them last year. I think, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we play 3 at the back, just to kind of counteract their attacking threat, and maybe bring in, Kelechi up with Vards. I think that may well happen. It's a Monday night game as well, which means obviously we've got to spend the whole weekend watching everyone else play and bide our time and wait. So I might do another video maybe on Sunday night before the game. Maybe even try and get a West Ham fan on with me to see if we can do a bit of a preview that way. So maybe I'll save kind of the in-depth preview for then. But I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good game, and hopefully we can continue our good start. After that we've got a couple more winnable home fixtures. I think actually we might have Man City at home, which obviously is tough, but a couple of other games that we should win. So fingers crossed, and it'll be a good game between 2 good sides. I think I'll leave it there for today. Thanks for joining, and like I said, I'll probably see you on Sunday for a preview before the West